All right, we are back. It's the FloTrack podcast. I'm Kevin. He's Gordon. FloTrackPodcast@gmail.com is our email address. Our first post-Olympic podcast. Gordon, how you doing?
Doing good. Excited for a new season of track and field, right? We just completed the year 2021. The Olympics are over. Now it's time for a new year. I guess technically there still is track going on, which is the weird part, right? Still track going on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a few bucks short now. I lost a few bills. I lost a total of $277. You can see all my bets here. I missed on that final bet, which was Galen Rupp medaling. He did not medal.
Mm-hmm.
He got 8th. So I ended up losing $277. But here's the thing. I could have won $372 if Rupp medaled. But more importantly, if Grant Holloway would have won, if Johannes Vetter would have won, I could think of a few others that were like very obvious, like should have been there, would have won, or would have medals. I had a bunch of fourth place people, bunch of third place medal picks, finished fourth. I told my mom about all these bets, and she was freaking out at the TV the entire week. It was a lot of stress for her. She thought I was out like $1,000+, but I wasn't, right? I ended up losing $277. But this makes me want to do it again. I'm definitely going to do it again in 2022 if they have odds for the World Championships.
No.
And my goal is, to make up for this $277 loss and get back into positive by 2022. That's the goal. Maybe there'll be more odds for other events, and I can start getting in it. Like Nuttycombe, let's see over under on the time. Or we can see a course record at Nuttycombe, maybe. So, are there odds on Will not Cole Hawker go pro? I got a plus 150 on that. It's a lot of good stuff going on.
Yeah. You didn't take any of my advice. What did your mom think about you betting money on a U.S. men's 4x1 team? What did she think about that strategy?
I didn't ask her any specifics. She was just stressed the entire time. She was just, every time she saw her baby's pick not do well, she cried a little inside and stressed out.
Yeah.
But, I was having fun.
She's an El Bacali super fan now, we can say, right? She's like big on Sofiane El Bacali because he got you some money.
Yeah, she's big. She was happy to Gross won, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, I had like crazy, like the Pichardo, Kovacs, Holloway three-way parlay was the one that really did me in. I had $300 on that. Pichardo easily medaled, Kovacs easily medaled, and all I needed was Holloway to win gold, and I would have won $327. But instead, I lost $300. So there was a couple in there that Chalimo was a big help. Put the money on Chalimo. He helped me out. But in the end, the lesson is don't gamble. And I'm just going to gamble once a year. That's my lesson. I'm going to gamble once a year. Once a year.
You're saying don't gamble, and then you're already gambling for next year's interesting turn of events here. So I want to do some recap stuff on the pod since you weren't there for our final podcast after the men's marathon, although you were there for the last track session. Lincoln and I did that marathon. But we want to talk about some superlatives here with the Olympic Games now in the book. So some what ifs, some big surprises, upsets, best event if you had one, biggest breakthrough, so on and so forth. Do you want to start with your biggest surprise? Like what surprised you the most when you look through these results?
I mean, to kind of tie to my betting, I think the biggest surprise was Grant Holloway not winning. I think that was the biggest surprise. There was a lot of other, big moments like world records or like the surprise of the Warholm's sub 46 400 meter hurdle. But in the back of all of our minds, we knew they were set up for greatness. I don't think any of us were prepared for Holloway to lose a race. He had just been so dominant the entire season long, dating all the way back to 2019. Been like 3 years. And you can even then argue going all the way through into college days, he had one blip on his radar, which was a 2019 USA loss, right, to Daniel Roberts. But ever since then, it was just like perfect, smooth sailing. He had that confidence. He was running well. He had that great mentality. And for him to get second, was, I think, the biggest surprise. And it's weird. You're good when silver medal was considered like the floor for him.
Mm-hmm.
That he hit his floor, which was silver, second fastest in the world. He still is the fastest man in the world right now at this event because he can run 12.80. But yeah, I think that was the biggest surprise for me was Grant Holloway not capstoning his run with a gold. And man, dude, it makes you think. Grant Holloway, he's gonna have to wait a few more years. He's gonna be winning. It's gonna be weird. He's gonna win gold in 2022 and 2023, and he's not gonna be happy. Well, he'll be happy, but it's all gonna be like whatever. This is a train. Worlds are gonna become training runs for him because it's gonna be all about 2024. So he's gonna be like jogging through 2022 and 2023 to get back to Paris to hopefully get the elusive gold medal. But look at that. All ones, even in the heats. First, and then the last one, second. This is wild. He won his heats. He won everything, and it wasn't close. Headwinds, tailwinds. There's a 1281 in that, and then he runs 1309. It's just like, whoa, what is going on? He hadn't run that slow since the first round of the Olympic trials where he ran 1311. Like, it's wild.
He looked to be on a bit of a roll there because he goes the 1281, the 1296 at USA's and just clicking off times. But it's the hurdles. I find it hard to believe, like, to get that stunned by the hurdles. Granted, he was so good to where it was considered a shock. And we had heard of Hansel Parchment before, but I'm with you. I didn't think he could pull off the upset at this stage. And I think you make a good point too about Worlds coming up. So he could go into the next Olympics being a 3-time world gold medalist without the Olympic gold, which will be an interesting story to follow. And with these athletes who are young, but still a couple years out of college, you become like, Olympics don't come that often. So you become, hey, you're in your prime to post prime pretty quickly. They always say, yeah, one Olympics before you're in your prime, one Olympics in your prime, and then one post prime for the majority of people. Now, you put Allison Felix's and Bernard Lagat's and everything, you put them in a special category. Shelley and Fraser Price, they're not the norm, but the vast majority of people, it's those 3 cycles, and maybe you can push it to a 4th. And with the Olympics getting pushed back a year, maybe this was a little bit in between for some athletes, but you got to think, okay, 2024, that'll be the best shot, because then you're looking at, if you don't get it then all the way to 2028, which is, people are now that young group, that class of 2016 high school group, by the time you get to 2028, 30 years old, pretty much at that point. Not to say you can't do anything at 30 years old, but it's weird to think how quickly it goes by.
Man, 2028. We're already thinking, how old will I be in 2028? I'll be 40. Whew.
Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah.
My biggest surprise was Italy, particularly on the sprint side. Marcel Jacobs, listen, some people had heard of him. Some people knew more than others. Maybe people knew him as a long jumper. Maybe people knew him as the European indoor 60-meter champion. But even in all those Diamond League appearances that he ran, he did not really ever jump out as, hey, this guy could get the gold. Maybe you could say he's going to sneak on to the podium. And then even after the rounds, he looked good in the rounds, but there were other people who looked better than him in the rounds. Didn't even win his heat, but came out with the perfect race at the perfect time to get gold. If I told you that top 2 of Jacobs and Curley in the men's 100 at the beginning of the year, you would have been really confused what I was talking about and what event, what sport. Like, you wouldn't have even known. You'd have been so confused as to what someone was predicting, because one guy wasn't even in the event and the other guy was basically a non-factor in the event. He hadn't even broke 10 seconds, and then he runs 9.8 at the right time to get gold. And then at the end of the meet, 4x1s are unpredictable. Yeah, US isn't in there, but still a lot of things had to go right, and there were still some solid teams in the final. And then they collabed to win the 4x1 and win when the team that wins a 4x1 has the fastest guy from the meet in the 100, you don't look at it as, okay, well, they just had good handoffs and it was a fluke and other people out of it. You look at it as, hey, they earned it. They had both parts down. They had the technical aspects of getting the stick around, but they also had the speed. And we saw Tortu on the anchor leg run down Great Britain. So yeah, they didn't have 4 legs of guys who were sub 990, but they had one superstar, another really solid guy, and then 2 other pieces that made it work. And they got that win by 1/100th of a second. So my biggest surprise overall was the Italian men's sprint development here, the phenomenon, the revolution going on.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at progression of season's best. So in the 100, Fred Curley's PB before 2021 in the 100 was 1049 from 2015. 1049. And Jacob's PB before 2021 was
10:02, I think.
10:03. 10:03.
Oh, so my apologies.
So I think this has got to be the first time in history that the 1-2 finishers at the Olympic Games never broke 10 before that year. Right? It's
in
wild.
The modern era.
It just shows
yeah.
It shows that there's something different about the way these guys were training, how they were able to put in, like, clearly Fred Curley wasn't trying to win the 100-meter dash until this year, basically. So
right, yeah.
You kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. He wasn't a 10:49 guy going into this year. He clearly was faster. He just never did it in a track meet with the automatic timing. But it does show that, like, we've talked about this, the diverse of talent, not the diverse of talent. What's the word? The ability to go from this one event to another. You know, you see what Safan Hassan doing 800 all the way up to 10K, maybe even marathon one day. Now you see Fred Curley. He'd be like, hey, he can handle the 100 all the way up to the 400. Michael Norman ran a fast 100 to 400. You're seeing a thing Mo 400 to 800. I just think we're going to see more and more of these bigger ranges of athletes and not just only focused on your one event, which is a cool trend that will make the sport more fun, right? Because then you see more matches, you see more double attempts. It'll be a little more exciting. So,
yeah, I think what people are doing and thinking about is, hey, I'm good. I'm an all-around athlete. I'm not just a 400-meter runner, or I'm not just a 100-meter runner. I'm not just a 5,000-meter runner.
Jumper.
I can stretch. Long jumper. I can stretch my range into other events. And Italy, they got a couple race walk golds there too, and of course they got Tim Beery's gold. So they end up with 5 gold medals, which was number 2 to the U.S., only 2 behind them, and ahead of a lot of nations that we're accustomed to seeing rack up a bunch of gold medals. They were 5 for 5. All their medals were gold. On the negative side of things, because you had a negative surprise, and I had a positive surprise. Negative surprise, my biggest surprise, I went back and I looked. Remember, I did chances of a medal for Americans in every single event. The 2 highest that didn't get a medal, so I would count these as my biggest surprises, were women's hammer, where I had, I think, 95% or 90% chance of the women's hammer producing at least 1 medal, and the men's 400. Those were the 2 that I had the highest that didn't ultimately produce a medal.
Yeah, it's weird, right? There were 3 legitimate hammer throwers and 3 legitimate quarter milers that were just like outbeat on the day, especially on the men's 400-meter side. Randolph Ross went out in the early rounds. Norman never really looked himself throughout the entire 3 rounds. And Cherry did a PB and still lost.
Yeah.
So, like, clearly the trio of Gardner, Zambrano, and James showed up when it counted most. Gardner defended that 2019 championship with ease. It wasn't even close. It wasn't like he hold it on for dear life. And Zambrano and James were just super consistent through the rounds. And this, they even had other guys there were other bullets that the USA dodged, like Wade Van Niekerk. He wasn't able to perform into a 44 type runner in the final, didn't make the final. There was a couple other bullets they dodged, but even with that, there were still 3 extremely solid runners, Gardner, Zambrano, and James, who were able to come out victorious over the U.S. trio. You thought that at least one American, when you're winning the 4x4 by 2 seconds and you're able to have so much depth, you have to think at least one American can be a medalist. But it didn't happen. It's just wild. It's gone are the days where USA is just a quarter-mile country. I think they're more just like, we're really good we're really good at 4x4s. We're just not too good at the open events anymore. I think that's the new U.S. thing.
I think when you look back at the season as a whole and you look at all the results, Gardner is the rightful champion based on what he's done this year. His resume is really solid, top to bottom. All the fast times, the wins that he has, and if you even want to extend it not just to 2021, you just want to look at this era, this mini era, I guess you could say, from 2019 through 2021. Randolph Ross had the time at NCAAs, and we saw James and Zambrano run fast in the heats, but those were the only sub 44 times this year. There's only been 4 sub 44 performances of this entire year, and Gardner makes sense as an Olympic champion. Zambrano, we'd seen him do it before in Doha. James, to me, was another positive surprise here. After all he's been through, to come back and get on the medal stand, and perhaps thinking Cherry was going to be able to finish ahead of James at the beginning of the season, that seemed like a good possibility. But then after the semis, when James goes 43.88, okay, now the task got even steeper. But yeah, I did not have the Americans going 4-5 at the beginning of the year in this event. And as I mentioned before, women's hammer, I thought at least 1 medal. I thought the potential of 2 medals, maybe gold, silver, silver, bronze, something like that. But it was tough. But I think Cherry ran really well. Cherry did everything he could. And I think that's another trend that I noticed. These silver medalists and bronze medalists and even 4th place people, the people who were runner-up or third at trials did really well. Like Fred Curley ran really well. Didn't win trials, but went to the Olympics and got silver. The 200-meter runners who got 2nd and 3rd at trials, they went and got 2nd and 4th in the Olympics. Michael Cherry, 2nd at trials, gets 4th, barely misses a medal. Go to the high hurdles. Devin Allen runs an amazing race, but finishes out of medals. Like the 2nd and 3rd place people did really well for the U.S. Shows the depth. Ultimately, didn't maybe produce the gold, or in some cases they were just off the medal in 4th. But there were good performances outside of just the super duper stars.
So is it my turn to come up with a positive surprise? Because I opened up with a negative. It's not negative, though, to say Holloway lost. Like, he's great. He can handle losing one race. He's still going to be, when all is said and done, he's going to be one of the all-time greats in the 110 hurdles. So it's not that negative of us.
Do one more surprise, and we'll move on.
All right. One more positive surprise. I'm going to go for it. It has to be Molly Seidel in the women's marathon. No one, and I mean no one, saw that coming. I feel like Molly probably didn't even see it coming herself. She just finds a way to put together the best race of your life when it matters most. The Olympic trials and the Olympic Games. And it's just, she's really good at these races where it's all about survival of the fittest. And not fittest as in like ability, but just the elements, right? She's able to handle this heat challenge like no one else. She looks so smooth the entire race. And I was listening to you and Lincoln when you were commentating about it. You're always talking about like, oh, there's still more time in the race. Eventually, it's going to unfold where the East Africans pull ahead. You know, you're just assuming that, right? Because it's like she's a 225 marathoner going up against two teens, like people who've run broken 220 multiple times. You're not supposed to be. Yeah,
Kasia ran 214. Her PR is 11 minutes slower.
In their league,
11.
You know, especially in a race that matters, which is an Olympic final. And then there was that. I feel like I just had flashbacks to the trials, and once I saw that she was still in it at like 30K, I was like,
Mhm.
she's not going to drop now. Like, when she was in the final like 6, I was thinking like she's doing what she did last in 20 in the 2020 trials. Like it felt very eerily similar, and just to see her cross the finish line in third was really cool. Really proud for her. And when you think back of her career, right? She was the one who broke the Footlocker curse. Remember that was a big deal. Like no one
Mhm.
has ever won Footlockers and NCAAs. You know, it was like a
Right.
big deal because Jordan Hussein couldn't do it, and a bunch of others weren't able to do it. But then she does it, and it was no big deal. And we made a big deal of her breaking the Footlocker curse, and she does that. Then she was dominating the NCAA world, but then dealt with a crazy injury, and it kind of took her out for a long period of time. You know, she missed out on big sponsorship opportunities, and there was I'm sure she probably thought there was a point when it's like maybe a post collegiate running career isn't her in her path,
Mhm.
but was able to work through the injuries, get herself back healthy, focus on herself, and then comes out, runs the marathon. Like, hey, we'll see what happens. I remember talking to her after the Houston half when she was like getting ready
Mhm.
for the major marathon. She's like, no pressure, right? She said no pressure. And she had that same attitude in this race, the no pressure attitude. And, you know, now she can say she's the first ever Foot Locker NCAA Olympic marathon medalist. You know, like it's just wild, man. It's awesome. And I just feel like she's come out of nowhere. Now, obviously, she was so dominant in college, and kind of forget about her doubles at
Yeah.
Notre Dame and all that stuff. But because she went like 2 to 3 years of kind of just not being in the mainstream spotlight, you kind of forget about her raw talent that was there. Like I think this would make more sense if you were told this after she won NCAA cross. You'll be like, yeah, I could see her developing, becoming really dominant at the marathon. But for someone to tell you when she was in the middle of like, you know, unsponsored, no one really not racing a lot, you were like, no, it's not going to happen. You don't
But
make a comeback in marathon number 3 with an Olympic medal. So for her to do it, it's just amazing. Big inspiration for a lot of people out there who who feel like they are at the bottom of, you know, dealing with injuries, never going to be able to recover from it. But she was patient. She trusted the process. There you go. And comes out with an Olympic
but
medal. It's amazing.
don't you think that even if she had won a bunch of titles, or even 2 3 years ago was competing USA's, this still would have been a shock? Like even if her PB
That's
was
true. Yeah.
219, she's still hanging with a 214 marathoner in Bridget Kosgei and Jep Chirchir, who's, you know, one of the greatest half marathon runners of all time, who has a really fast marathon time as well too. Even if she had a profile that hinted that this was possible, doing it is still
Yeah.
incredible. But it just adds. I think you're right
It's
though.
double
It just
incredible then.
Yeah, it just adds some mythology because you watch trials and you're thinking, okay, wow, that's the debut. Okay, but how's she gonna do when you know in her second one, right? And then she goes to London last year, and that probably helped too, having another year to get ready for this. And she holds her own in London, does well, bad conditions, but runs solid. But the story of that race for the Americans was Sarah Hall. Remember how
Yeah.
fast Sarah Hall was in
Yeah. She
London, and
got
then
second. Yeah.
she keeps on, and then she kind of keeps a low profile and runs some halves, some 10Ks. We don't know what to expect from her. And then you're right, for someone who has done it so few times, there was an air of inevitability around 30 35K. It may not have come across in the broadcast just because I was trying to conceptualize what was going on, but looking back on it now, you're thinking, well, yeah, she just has already established that sort of racing profile of somebody who knows exactly what they want to do and thrives in these tough conditions.
I guess the big not to always think about next steps for her is that clearly she has an advantage on these style of races where it's not fast. It's more about it's her versus the elements because, you know, there was no reason for the Kenyan athletes to try to run sub 220 pace, right? They were just We're just gonna
Yeah.
let the field size peel off, and then get down to the final 6 and then pull away, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
she excels in that because they're not asking her to run 2:18 marathon pace.
Mm-hmm.
So she was of majority of the race, she's running like 2:30 marathon pace. So
Sure.
she was able to feel comfortable at that pace because PB is 2:25. But the thing that is hard about running 2:30 marathon pace was the heat, the pressure of the the environment, all that stuff. And she was just able to kind of just chill out, relax the body, and get through the first 35K unscathed. And all of a sudden, it's not a field of 80 in this race. It's just a field of 6. And now, hey, just hold on. And, she never really had to make any big accelerations. She was always just holding on with the front group and letting them kind of control the pace. So I think her next step, not that she needs to have her next step already because an Olympic medal is freaking amazing, is going to be figuring out ways to be successful in a 2:20 type pace of a marathon, like where it's going to be you're really putting your body through the ultimate test of like pushing yourself to the limits of how fast of a pace you can maintain. But at the same time, she could go the rest of her career, never break 2:20, have a bunch of top 3 finishes at major marathons, and be one of the all-time greats for U.S. distance running. So it's not like the Kenyans kind of skew our version of what a fast marathon is because they're out there running 2:14. It's a little hard to kind of conceptualize. A 2:21 is really fast. So
I had her in my list of biggest breakthroughs, but you took her in terms of biggest surprises. Is there anybody else in terms of breakthrough performances from these Olympics that stands out?
We'll get to that later. We'll get to that. I'll save it. I'll come up with one.
All right. What are you saving it for? That's the next thing I have written down here.
Well, no, you have it at the bottom. You have it at the bottom of the list. We're gonna do breakthroughs next.
I was gonna jump around.
Oh, we're jumping
so
around?
We had.
All right.
Well, I want to do what ifs. I want to do what ifs last because you really need to warm up for those because that's a Gordon Mack special of like, what if these...
I added more to your.
You added more. Yeah. I was gonna put what ifs at the. Yeah, I like these. These are good. These are good what ifs.
Okay.
Because Lincoln and I already talked about MVPs. On the men's side, I went with Warholm on the men's side, and I went with Sifan Hassan on the women's side. Obviously, it's very, very close call there. There's a lot of people in contention. Do you have a pick on either of those? Strong feeling on either men's side or women's side?
For MVPs, I would do Jacobs. I would do Jacobs of Italy. I think his big surprise following up winning double gold, very interesting. I'll do Jacobs and I would do Elaine Thompson would be my MVPs. I would go sprint heavy. But, I can see Warholm.
Warholm's 45.94. Not enough for Gordon to get MVP.
Not enough. Not enough for Gordon, man.
Sorry.
No, not enough. Come on.
Thompson Herat, you're right. I mean, Thompson Herat with the triple gold, 2 individual gold, and then running number 2 all time. The times are really what makes it pop there, right?
Yeah. And double gold. I mean, she's moving up the list of all-time greats. If she can continue this trend going into future championships and another Olympics, like if she stays healthy and she stays at this fitness, she's 28 or 29? I mean, I could see her holding on to 2024. And if she were to win double gold in 2024, then you'd be like, that's Bolt. That's 3 double doubles. That's exactly what Bolt did. So it'll be weird though, because she'll also have in between like random 5th place finishes and not making a final, right? And it'll be like, because Bolt was still good throughout the off years, but it'll be the weirdest triple double we've ever seen. So
the triple double. Yeah, I made that chart here of Felix comps, and Thompson Herat is already at 5 global individual championship medals, but 4 of them are gold. So she's already equaled. We were talking about Veronica Campbell-Brown, who has 11 total medals. She's already equaled the amount of gold Elaine Thompson has, and she's only 1 behind Felix's gold. She's already surpassed Merlin Ottey. She's 3 behind Fraser Price. I'm curious about Fraser-Price's next couple of years. That's what I'm
Yeah.
curious about. This
Yeah,
is
I made
see,
this.
you made this. This chart is ridiculous, by the way. But go ahead if you want to explain it.
It's accurate though. It removes relays and it scores it 10, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So it includes 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th places. And I want to see where Allison Felix was. Shelly-Ann and Allison moved into the top 10 after this past weekend, right? Because they both got a medal, and Shelly-Ann got a 4th place finish in a 200. But it makes it's more about holistically, because obviously someone like Merlene Ottey of Jamaica, she only has 2 golds, but she's ranked 3rd because look at that. She has 10 bronzes. That just shows like that's a lot of points. 10 bronzes is a lot of individual medals, right? She's 10, 5 plus 2. She's 17 individual medals. That's no relays in that. That's crazy. Like compared to like when we say Allison Felix is the most decorated like athlete, right? It's just wild to think that she has 6 more than Allison Felix has when it just in just relays. So anyway, but
Okay.
what do you think of this list that I created with Carl Lewis 1?
I want you to
Usain Bolt 2. Hold on, let's talk about this. Let's do a little
yeah,
Allison Felix segment.
we can talk about it. Yeah, no, we can talk about it. I want you to guess though. I have 2 problems with this list. I want you to try to guess what problems you think I have with this list.
Okay, first we'll bring up the list one more time. For people listening, it's a list that scores individual global medals, doesn't count indoor, only counts Olympics and outdoor championships, and 10 points for gold, 8 for silver, et cetera, all the way down to 1 point for 8th. Carl Lewis has 147 points, Bolt 145, Merlene Ottey of Jamaica, top woman 136, Mo Farah 121, Veronica Campbell-Brown 110, Trinisha Dababa 106, and Allison Felix 104. Turnish, sorry. Allison Felix number 104 at 7, Shelly-Ann 102 at 8, Jackie Jonah Kersey 101 at 9th, and in 10th, Ray Erie, I said his name wrong, who had just 10 golds with 100 points.
Yeah, okay.
It's pretty good.
So,
all right, what's wrong with
it? Listen, this is a list of if you scored it like team competition, which is fine. It's one way to look at it. I don't think this is the ranking of the best athletes here. One issue here, and I'll go farther down the list. If you were using this as a ranking of athletes, Justin Gatlin cannot be ahead of Michael Johnson. 9 golds cannot be behind someone who has 4 golds. Again, I understand the point value with silver and bronze, but Justin Gatlin versus Michael Johnson is that matchup goes to Michael Johnson. You have them close, but 9 golds dominated that event through like the whole 90s into 2000. That's Gatlin. The other one, that's Johnson.
You do realize Felix, it's barely. It's 92 to 90, so you can, it's not.
Yeah, but it's not. But I don't think people would think that it's even close. Basically, 9 golds. 9 golds.
11 medals.
That's more than
11 medals. 11 medals is more than 9 golds.
Yeah, but I think we need to give more weight to the golds. No, we give weight to the golds, and that's why
I give you 10 points. I give you 10 points.
That's why I would put, and I'm not saying Felix should necessarily jump everybody else, but I think Felix over Ottey for the same reason. When I looked at those 2 careers, again, a lot of bronze medals, but I think even more weight should be given to gold. So if you're talking about 2 golds versus 5 golds, I'd put Felix ahead of her. And you have Fraser-Price, 7 golds versus 2 golds for Ottey. It should be Fraser-Price should be right up there behind Bolt if it was used as a ranking the athletes. I understand what you're doing. Here in terms of just assigning point values. So that's the exercise here. I don't think you're saying these are the best athletes in order. You're just saying if you scored it like a team competition. Because here's the thing. Ultimately, none of this stuff is a fair comparison because you have Valerie Adams down there who's awesome, but she can only do the shot put. She can't double.
Yeah,
I guess she could if she wanted to. So, I mean, Haile Gebrselassie, he could double in the 5 and 10. His event was always set up to double. That's not the case with everybody in here. And even Carl Lewis, it's like the most impressive Carl Lewis stat to me is the 4 straight Olympic golds in the long jump. Right? Yeah. That's the most impressive stat. and that adds a different technical component. But you see people do the long jump and the 100, or the long jump and the 200, 4x1, whatever. It's, you get a thrower, or you get a vertical jumper, or you get somebody in the 800. It's harder to find an event that has crossover appeal. So again, Allyson Felix is the most decorated Olympian of all time. If you want to do who scored the most points, you have Carl Lewis here. Some people would say that Bolt would be number one. Fraser Price and Elaine Thompson, I think, if they're not done, they're going to keep adding up medals here. So you could take this argument any which way. But yeah, Michael Johnson got to be higher up if we're just doing a list.
Yeah, well, again, there's caveats for everything.
And like Jackie Joyner-Kersee, obviously Jackie Joyner-Kersee long jumps too, but like her event was 7 events. So she wasn't able to rack up like multiple golds every single time, every Olympics, right? Like that's just,
well, I think
it's
what
so
you do
impossible
is
to compare these.
You got to look at ranges, right? I have Carl Lewis at 147 and Bolt at 145. So it's only a 2-point difference. So therefore, you can kind of put them in one tier, and then you can subjectively choose Bolt or Lewis. I think DeBaba, Felix, Shelly-Ann, Joyner-Kersee, you could probably put in another tier. I think the big weird thing is Merlin Ottey's career. To have 17 medals is just like an individual event. It's just wild. Like that shows longevity, consistency. The thing is a lot of them are bronze. So if half of those bronzes were silvers, and half of the silvers were golds, we would be talking like the way we talked about Carl Lewis and Bolt with Ottey. But because she's really good at getting third, it's like a weird person. How do you value consistent third versus occasional gold?
Right. And well, and you'd also need to throw in there, I would think, if you were to make this more holistic, some sort of metric for marks, and also some sort of difficulty level for the amount of medals you're pulling off. Joyner-Kersee did the heptathlon long jump double gold 3 times in her career. Can you imagine if Ashton Eaton, when he won those decathlons, also won an individual event in the current era, or Kevin Mayer, or Nafi TM, or some contemporary person? That just is amazing to think about, that you could be getting gold in both events. I know Damian Warner's long jump was crazy in this competition and probably could have placed ridiculously high, but to actually go out and do it is another thing, given the toll that it takes. So there's Gordon's list. Everybody saw it. I want to ask you though, Michael Johnson put up a tweet, and we love reading Michael Johnson's tweets on this pod. The aforementioned Michael Johnson, 9 golds, about like who can run the table. Is it possible for anybody to run the table? Because we have this string of championships coming up. So we had 21, then we have 22, 23, 24, 25. So we have 5, right, before the next off year. So who basically could win 5 golds in a row in an event? It's a tall task. So
all right. So let's go down. Let's go down the list of every gold medalist and say yay or nay.
So he's got, well, he asks the next 3, Eugene, Budapest, and Paris, but there's also a major championship in 25, unless someone changed the orders here. So yeah, who can go 5 for 5? You want me to read a name and you tell me yes or no?
Yeah. Do you have, we'll start men?
Yeah.
We'll start with
Jacobs.
No.
DeGrasse.
No.
Gardner.
How old is he?
I think he's 20.
He's already going. He's 20. He's 25. He's 25.
25, excuse me.
Maybe. I would say maybe.
Emmanuel Carrere, gold medalist.
I can't believe I got off his bandwagon too early, man. I should have stayed. Everyone was yelling making fun of my career love, and then he goes on and wins gold, and I didn't even bet on him. I'm going with no. Donovan Brazier's going to break that up.
Ingebrigtsen.
Yes, I think so. I can see it happening.
So Ingebrigtsen's your number 1 seed right now.
Yeah. Ingebrigtsen, yes.
Okay.
Gardner's a maybe.
Okay, Cheptegei,
No.
Barega,
No.
Parchment,
No. If he did though,
War
that would be wild.
Warholm.
I'm gonna say no, right? It's got Benjamin's got to win eventually, right? It just has to happen. It can't just always be this way. Eventually, the Vikings got to get taken down by the American Patriot, right? That's what happens. So I'm gonna say no. I think Benjamin eventually beats him. And Dos Santos is
Kipchoge.
young. He's young 20, so he's
Yeah,
gonna get even better. So
yeah. Kipchoge.
Kipchoge, no.
Tambiri / Barshim. Will they tie for the gold for the next 4 championships?
I'm going with no.
Mondo.
Yes.
Tentaclu.
No.
Pichardo.
No.
Krauser.
How old is Krauser?
He's 23 in my book because every time I see him, all I hear about is 23s.
I'm gonna say yeah. I can see him doing it. Yeah. Yes.
Stahl.
I can see Krauser doing it.
Danny
Yes.
Stahl.
No He's
Nowicki.
young. Is he? He's 28. So yes. Nowicki, no. That's hammer throw for those.
Chopra.
That's javelin
Yeah,
throw.
I'm into the
That's
jab.
no. Yeah.
Damian Warner. That's a long time for a decathlete.
How old is he? He's 31. No, that's a no. Okay, so on the men's side, recap men.
So you had Krauser you had Nowicki at a maybe, right? Or
No,
Stahl at a maybe.
Nowicki was a no. Stahl was a maybe.
Oh, sorry, Stahl. Stahl's a maybe. Krauser's a maybe / yeah. Mondo is a yeah. And then you had Warholm as a no, which was interesting. Ingebrigtsen as a yeah, and
Yes.
Gardner as a maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. And then El Bakali. What about El Bakali?
Sorry.
Steeple? I'm going to go with, how old is he? I'm going to go yes. El Bakali's a yes. He's 25.
Okay. Okay. Women's side, Elaine Thompson, hurrah. In the 100.
I'm going to say no.
Elaine Thompson, hurrah in the 200.
I'm going to say no. I just think the world is just too good that she's shown that she can have bad championship seasons. So I do think, though, she'll show up in 2024 and win. But I think presence of Shakira and the other Jamaicans, I'm going to go no.
Shauna Miller-Weibo.
I'm going to go with a no.
Thing Mo.
We can go with a yes.
Faith Kipyegon.
We can go with a no on that one.
Sifan Hassan in the 5,000.
We can go with a yes in that one.
Sifan Hassan in the 10,000.
We can go with a no in that one.
See, I would flip those, but okay. Jasmine Camacho Quinn, high hurdles.
That's a no.
Sydney McLaughlin, 400 hurdles.
Yes. If she does it.
That's
there
my
might
thing.
Be a situation she doesn't run all 400 hurdles. But
so say she wins in
yes.
20. Say she wins in 22, 23. Maybe she switches events for 24, 25, or maybe she wins 22, 23, 24, and then she pivots for 25. Okay. Peruth Chemutai in the steeple.
Go with a no.
Perez Jepchirchir in the marathon.
Go with a no.
Lassa Skine in the high jump.
How old is she? We'll go with the yes.
28 years old. I'm going to go no on that one. Najat. Katie Najat.
No.
Miambo of Germany, the long jump.
No. Brittany Reese is going
to Rojas.
Yes.
Brittany Reese I think this is her last games, man. I think
she's not doing
might need to be somebody else. I mean, I don't know if she's retiring, but I know she's not doing this is her last Olympics, she said for sure.
Yeah, well, 22, she's going to do 2022. Come on. Well, Tara Davis
Rojas,
will
you said
eventually, so.
You said Rojas?
Yeah, Rojas is a yes.
Gong Li Zhao in the shot.
No.
Valerie Allman in the discus.
I'm gonna go yeah. See what happens.
Anita Wolarczyk in the hammer.
No.
Shi Ying in the javelin.
No.
And Thiam in the hep.
Go with a no.
So Rojas, you said Lasaskine, you said has a chance. Sydney, TBD. You had Hassan in the 5, and then you said a Thing Mo. Did you have a yes on a Thing Mo?
Yes.
I think it might be. I would put the over under basically at 1.5 probably that this is going to happen.
Any of these happening?
Yeah, because
Oh, yeah.
number one,
the odds are very rare. No.
Yeah, winning 5 in a row is hard
Crazy.
enough, and then you take out the off year. It's gonna be complicated here. All right, you want to do these what ifs?
Yeah, let's do some what ifs.
Okay. I came up with some of these. We'll start with the sprint side, and then we'll do the distance. So, what if Olympic edition here? What if Michael Norman decided to run the 100 this year, and Fred Kerley decided to stay in the 400? Those two just swapped.
Ooh. I think Kerley medals in the 400. I think his mentality clearly showed that he's ready for any challenge, and that, if he had the amount of energy he put on this 100 back on the 400, I think he would have been able to run 43 seconds in that final and able to medal. I don't want to say he would win because Gardner's been running really well, so you don't want to take that away from Gardner, but Kerley definitely would at least got second or third. And we've seen it with Kerley. He's already now tweeting 42 seconds. He wants to run 42 seconds in the 400. I'm not sure if it's a troll, but we thought the 100-meter thing was a troll, but clearly it wasn't. So if he thinks he can run 42 seconds, I imagine he probably, if he was all in on the 400, probably thought he could have run at least 43 in the final. So I think Kerley would have medaled, so that would have done good for USA. In the 100, I think Norman probably would have made the final. I'm not sure if Norman would have medaled, but maybe. I don't know. I'm more confident. I mean, this makes sense. Confident on the medalists medaling the other event versus the non-medalists not medaling in the other event. But I do think it would be similar kind of results. The total medal haul between the two would have been similar, if not exactly the same.
You could argue that Michael Norman's best race since his Mount Sac 400 in 2019, April 20th, 2019, his best race since then was his 98600 at AP Ranch in 2020. Because the rest of 2019, he ran 43.79 at USA's, but lost to Kerley. And then 2020, his only race was that 100. Then 2021, he wins the trials, but it's 44.07. I think the 986 is better. So
yeah,
it's hard to tell because we don't really know Norman's situation, but 986 is a serious time, and obviously a lot faster than Kerley had going into the year. So that's a fun what if. Are you ready for my
another permutation of the what if? Obviously, the Kerley Baker handoff was one of the key reasons for them not qualifying. I'm not saying Norman's going to do any better, but a different person, maybe you get a different result. Maybe we get a different result in the 4x1, and then all of a sudden, maybe the US 4x1 is not the laughing stock of the games.
Okay, well, you're getting ahead of me here because my next one was what if the U.S. ran Kenny Bednarik on anchor in the prelim?
Yeah.
Because here's the reason I asked.
We probably qualify. We probably qualify because we were like the first team out by like 0.02. I think we probably qualify. But yeah, we probably do qualify. I mean, no offense to Gillespie, but yeah, we just
Bednarik was running great.
Qualify.
Bednarik was fourth at trials in the 100, and then he was just coming off the the silver medal in the 200. So give him a running start in the 100. He's going to be pretty solid. Here's why I ask. 2019 Worlds, we remember the U.S. getting the gold medal. Do you remember what happened in the heats of the 4x1?
What happened?
Almost DQ'd. Very, very, very close to getting DQ'd. But they got through, and then they win the gold. And they got to stick around, and it was clean, and they ran a really fast time, and everybody remembers that gold. So the whole narrative could have shifted if they just squeaked through. And they would have needed to just finish a couple hundredths of a second faster. They could have still had that bad second exchange and just saved themselves on the anchor. And so if you had somebody who ran a couple hundredths faster, then maybe that's different. I don't know. Maybe Lyle's there too. I'm not, with a flying start, I'm not sure. That would obviously help him. I don't know who would have been quicker there, but just basically it's survive in advance in the relays is what I've learned, because you just need a lane for the final, and then you get better handoffs, and then you're good to go. But like you look at, this is Kenny B's season we got up there, correct? Yeah. Like 989 in that final at the trials. He ran 996. You see all his consistent sub 20 marks. I think they could have basically squeaked in and then made a move in the final.
Yeah. Looking back on it, that's probably the move they should have made. But it is what it is. Congrats to Italy. Italia, this is their moment. Let them have it. USA will bring back the gold in 2022 on their home turf. Next big what if. You ready for the next big what if? We're going to say
I'm going to throw it to you.
What if. Oh, you're going to throw it to me. Okay.
Yeah. I think we're thinking of the same one here. What if Shakira Richardson ran the 100?
If Shakira Richardson ran the 100, one of two things happens. She either wins or she doesn't win. Can you agree with that? Would you agree there's a chance she would win? There's a chance she doesn't win. The question is, what percent of a chance is it on her winning and beating Elaine Thompson, probably having to run 10:59 in order to beat Elaine Thompson on that day?
Mm-hmm.
Or does she lose to Elaine Thompson, get second, third, fifth, whatever? I think the hedge is, the playing both sides of the coin is saying she would have medaled, right? But I think that's no fun to kind of just be like, she would have medaled, because it would it makes both sides a little too happy. So I'm going to say, I think she would have won. I think that, I'm not saying that Elaine, but I think she would have won, but I also think maybe the race would have been maybe slower. I think there could have been different factors with having her in the race. You're not always guaranteed the same exact time outcome with different fields. And so I think maybe the winning time is like 10:65 and Elaine Thompson runs 10:66.
Wait, hold on. So you think putting a fast person in there would have made the race slower? What do you mean? How would that happen?
I think it changes up what you do in the prelims. It shifts everyone around. I don't know, man. Crazy things happen, right? Grant Holloway lost. If Grant Holloway can lose, Elaine Thompson can run a little bit slower in this imaginary final with Shakira Richardson. With that being said, I think that Shakira Richardson, she was running well, dude. It wasn't close.
Yeah, she was.
And as much as the Jamaicans are running amazing, and they deserve their sweep, I don't think it's just a foregone conclusion that they would have also done the sweep or also won individually, no matter what happened. Like, crazy things happen, and I think the addition of Shakira Richardson adds in the chaos, adds in the craziness, and maybe USA comes out on top. I know Jamaica fans aren't going to like to hear that, but hey, I can have this thought in my head, and there's nothing you can do about it, because you can't prove that it wouldn't have happened, because we literally don't see it. It can't happen. So until you can prove this hypothetical doesn't, unless you can figure out a way to record and time this hypothetical, I'm going to say Shakira would have won.
I have too much respect for a 10:61. I think Thompson Hurrah was going to win. Regardless, I think you're right before in your first instinct to say medal. Obviously, I think she would have gotten, she would have been in the mix in the top three. Fraser Price didn't have her best race, so I think that spot was open. We've seen Richardson run a 10-7 win legal, but 10-61, you gotta understand the historical significance of running that quickly. So I think it would not have changed the gold medal winner. I certainly don't think the race would have been slower with her in it. But I mean, she's Richardson's run 10-72 this year, win legal. Not crazy to think she could have gotten silver given that race. But I think the gold, these were Thompson Hurrah's games.
Yes.
Tip of the cap to her. To have to run 10-6-0 or 10-5-9 to win in a women's 100 is asking an awful lot. And I think Thompson
I'm not saying that would happen.
I know you're saying she would have been slower because Richardson would have been in the race pushing her somehow, which I still don't understand how that's physically possible, but I will let you have that thought because, as you said before, these are your thoughts and we cannot control your thoughts. But I think Elaine Thompson-Herah would have won this regardless.
Hey, I mean, Gabby Thomas ran slower in the 200 when Elaine Thompson was in it. So maybe, right? Gabby Thompson didn't go out there and
Elaine
run
Thompson didn't. But Elaine Thompson didn't run slower because there were faster people in the race. If you removed the second place runner, would Thompson-Herah have run faster? I don't think that's the case. Listen,
here Elaine would have been different.
That race should have.
Elaine would have been different.
Yes,
everything changes, man.
You have to deal with a different lane. Yeah.
Maybe Shakira's a little late or early or whatever, and the exact time when the gun goes off is off by like 20 seconds, which changes the wind reading. Like all this stuff is possible. Anything can happen. Imagine Shakira Richardson's like entrance, going through with the American flag. That's going to take an extra 12 seconds. That may change the wind reading to plus whatever or minus whatever. So, hey, anything's possible.
Okay. All right. I got one more I want to do because the distance what ifs aren't as good. We could do those next time if we want, but the distance ones were not as interesting to me. So I got one more sprint one. Or you have one more sprint one that you added also said I'll read. What if a thing Mo and Shamir Little ran the 400 and also Christine Mboma and Beatrice Massalingi, who were not allowed to run it and had to run the 200, but Mboma won a silver medal in that 200. So what if the 400 had these four other athletes who are all capable of running 48, 49 mid, all the way down to 48 high, probably. Potentially.
So let's start with Mo. I think Mo would have won the 400 because seeing how she split in that 4x4, this is assuming Mo runs a 400 fresh, not with an 800 in her legs, for the record. I think Mo would have won. I think she's that talented. And we would have had a very similar kind of deja vu moment for Shawnee Miller-Weibo, where she runs out of her mind but still gets second, right? I think we could have had, she'd be like, damn, I run 48.3 and it's still not enough to win when she, lost in 2019. So I think that happens. I think also the addition of the two DSD athletes would make it even faster. And I think that would obviously affect Allison Felix, right? She got third. We'd be talking about it a little differently. I mean, she still would have got her medal in the 4x4. But if you add in Mo and Christine Mboma, I don't think Allison Felix gets third. Do you think she still gets third?
Adding all those people, knowing what they did in these games, it definitely would have been tough. I mean, you can only race the people that are there. I think, let's back up for a second here, though. You made a huge assumption. What did Thing Mo split in the 4x4?
48.7. I don't know. What is she split? I could be wrong. I think I made that up somewhere. 48.7.
Okay.
What
did Shawnee Miller-Weibo run in the open? What did Shawnee Miller run in the open? Okay.
48.3. Okay. Yeah. Well, all right. Okay. I think Mo was by herself doing a tone time trial, and she had just run 155 in an 800. So
yeah,
I think Mo would have ran 48.2 or 1. I think
that'd have been a big jump.
Good, man. You're off that.
I didn't say she isn't.
You're leaving the Thing Mo train, and I'm back. I'm on it. Come on.
No, you're just no. The price of admission to this train isn't that I have to give her every gold medal in every single event. She just won the 800-meter gold medal. Obviously, she's amazing, but I'm saying putting her ahead of Shaunae Miller-Weibo is a bit of a leap given what Shaunae Miller-Weibo ran that day. I think the wild cards, the interesting would have been like Mboma, because what she ran, that world junior record this year, what was it, 40? I'm blanking on the time right now. 48:54 she ran this year. So that was only 2/10 off what Miller-Weibo ran. So that would have been nuts to see that race, because it would have been very, very close. But I think Mo's very good. She's obviously top 3 in the United States in the 400, but I would put her behind Shaunae Miller-Weibo for the time being. And I hope that she gets to do it soon, because Gordon, I already looked ahead at the schedule for Eugene, and the double is not possible in the 2022 World Championships. How is it not possible? You might ask. They have them going back to back one night. The 400, women's 400 and women's 800 are back to
I
back.
thought they were making every double possible in 2022. No, didn't you talk about that? We're like, oh, they made every double possible.
No, they lied to us, Gordon. We've been led astray by this. I think it's a semi and a 400 and a final. It's a final in one and then a semi in the other, and it's literally back to back. So there's no way it's going to happen. So that's terrible. Hopefully they change it. Hopefully they change it. I don't think they will, because people are already buying tickets, but I would strongly encourage it. And by the time, the problem is, though, by the time they do decide, they're like, we'll change it for 2024. It's like all the people are different. Yeah. You don't know if it's even worth doing. Maybe another double pops up that's possible. It's like, have one schedule that makes all the doubles possible and keep it the same, so everybody knows what to expect. Yes.
So I mentioned in this what if that Shamir Little also would be in the 400. And I think Shamir Little would have clearly finished top 8, and the Shamir Little clearly would have been an Olympian. And then Shamir Little clearly would have been on the mixed 4x4 or the 4x4 or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then we would have won the mixed 4x4, because I think Shamir would have split 49 seconds. Right? And then that would have been good for us. And then, then I get closer to my dream of just having 3 400-meter hurdlers and an 800-meter runner representing USA. Now, obviously, Allison earned her spot with her 49 second, and it's better. I'm happy that Allison was on the 4x4 as a legitimate 49 second and not like a token, hey, I'm elder statesman, I get a spot. She earned it with her 49 mid. So it was kind of cool to have that dream team-esque type 4x4 we haven't seen in a while. And, if Allison can hold on to one more year, I at being 49 seconds, that would be great. But if not, I think you got to put Shamir on it and try to break the world record, right? Because Dalilah, Muhammad, Mo, all still in the prime. Shamir's in her prime, and she clearly can run quick. So I think that'll be interesting if we could make.
So here's the ultimate.
I want to see the world record in the 4x4. That's all.
Here's the ultimate. This is the ultimate Olympic what if, because it would go outside of track and field. But I don't know if you saw the final medal table. The U.S. had 1 more gold medal than China the entire competition, and a lot of it was people looking at the track performance or the swim. The ones where the Americans are used to bringing in a bunch of gold medals. And we know at the very beginning of the meet, there was that mixed 4x4 where everyone said, oh, who cares about it? But it would have been funny if that was the deciding factor, if the U.S. lost by 1 or it was tied and it all came down to this mixed gender 4x4. And then if you had the presence of someone like Little in there, they could have won. And then all these narratives are written about what's happened to American sports. Is it not just track? Is it slipping? Is it losing its dominance? And it all would have hinged on this one decision by this one person and this one relay that's just added this year. And luckily we avoided that, because I think there was a track cycling gold medalist, and then the U.S. women's volleyball team won gold. So they ended up winning by 1. So we did not have to hear those takes here in the United States. But there would have been some hand-wringing about the mixed gender 4x4, Gordon.
Yeah, USA at the Olympics won 39 golds to China's 38. There are a total of 390 golds given out. There's 390 events. Mm-hmm. That's men's basketball out of an individual event. So 39 out of 390, that's 11%. 11% of the golds went to Team USA at the Olympic Games. USA's population is only 4% of the world. So we almost tripled our output. 2.7 times our population we got in gold. So I call that a success. None of this per capita gold stats you'll see out there where like they give all credit to the Bahamas because they have like 12 people in their country, which is very impressive when you really when you think about it.
Bahamas, yeah.
Bahamas,
no slander Bahamas on this pod, man. They got the 400-meter sweep. That was amazing. Gardner, Miller-Weibo, tip of the cap. They should still be partying out there. Congrats to Bahamas.
Did they attempt?
Okay, so on
did Bahamas attempt to do the mixed 4x4?
No, I didn't see them in there.
I mean, you got to think if they put those two on it. I mean, they're not going to because they would not be healthy. But I would want to see that. I would want to see a Gardner, Sean and Miller-Weibo, and then whoever else they can find. And I bet you they could put together a pretty good mixed 4x4 because clearly they got the two fastest people in the world. So,
for sure. Okay, Thursday's show, because we're doing Tuesday, Thursday this week. Thursday show, we're going to talk about the events that we want to see the rest of the season, the post-Olympic events that have caught our eye. Some of these are happening for sure because athletes are already committed. Other ones we are just hoping happen. So we'll talk about that on Thursday. Thank you to Travis for producing. Thank you to Colt for producing. Thank you to Gordon for coming up with weird charts and interesting opinions that have left everybody scratching their head. We will talk to you guys on Thursday.